listeners, welcome to Daily Politics, where we'll be talking about the ever so controversial topics of around the world and my opinion on it. I'm your host, Edmund Scroll, and in today's episode we'll be talking about: should the forced military conscription of South Korea be changed to an optional right for citizens? Now, I'll be explaining what the Korean military service is and its background before I explain my opinion on it so we can have a clearer image. Stated in the Military Service Act, Article 3, every male citizen of the Republic of Korea shall faithfully perform mandatory military service as prescribed by the Constitution of the Republic of Korea and this Act. A female may perform only active service or reserve service through volunteering. All Korean male citizens, meaning they only have to have a Korean citizenship, not from another country, from age 18 to 35 need to serve 18 months in the military, which specific amount of time depends on the branch at some point. Avoiding this can cause the individual to be heavily fined and even lead to imprisonment. The mandatory military conscription consists of 5 weeks of military boot camp and 73 weeks of military training. The main reason the mandatory military service exists is because on August 15, 1948, South and North Korea separated due to the result of a Cold War, which has caused rivalry between these two countries ever since. Due to the ongoing danger present for South Korea, the country could be attacked at any time and needs a supply of military trained personnel to be able to defend against the North. Now that we know the background knowledge of the Korean military conscription, we will move on to talk about my opinion on this controversial topic. I believe the obligatory enlistment of male soldiers should be an optional right, same as given to all South Korean women. Reason for this is that there will be less negative effects on the mental health for conscripts, lower the high rates of suicides or suicide-related subjects recorded, the reinforcement of human rights, a better use of time for young adults, and the improvement of the results of the training overall. Imagine you have a son and your country takes them away, and when you see them again, their happy smile is turned into a traumatized face, a face that went through insufferable pressure in the army. Even worse, imagine your son is taken away without a proper goodbye and the army informs you that they have died by suicide. Now, according to Asian News Network, in 2021, there had been more than 24,000 cases of complaints from enlisted soldiers to the South Korean Defense Military's Help Center. 11,000 being duty struggles, 2,500 being human rights violations, 900 mental health concerns, and more than 500 reports of thoughts about suicide. There are also been reported 66 suicide deaths in 2022, which 26 of them were conscripts and enlisted soldiers. Many of these types of problems come from bullying and physical sexual abuse the conscripts can face. One example of this is shown through the perspective of Kim. In 2018, he had enlisted for the army and yet he had found himself ostracized. This had worsened as time went on when he had gotten an infection that didn't let him do certain duties. He was called a coward or a bastard for not doing them. This has spread to also officers, which caused him to be sent to a mental hospital due to the psychological abuse. He said he felt invisible, a case that isn't very uncommon in the army. Also, according to the BBC, there is a high amount of modified types of bullying, like ostracism, as said before, and cyberbullying, also adding with physical or sexual abuse, which many had led to suicide. This has been traced back from the learnings young adults get from high school and middle school, which transfers to the army, shown as there is more than 12,000 reports of similar cases by the Education Ministry. And according to Reuters, the physical trouble and harsh social conditions had also been shown through a popular series called DP or Deserter Pursuit, which had been inspired by a real event where a conscript was bullied until his mental health had led to a massacre of 6 other soldiers. Korean soldiers are open to a very pressuring social environment which could drain their mental health. They are forced into this world without their own willpower, causing the effects to be inevitable. Making the enlistment optional could take many of these problems away, especially the bullying recruits can face without their volunteering. Another point of mine is that many conscripts enlist when they are young right out of high school. According to the interpreter, this disrupts their university or college education and career entries, which some suspend this so their schedule can coexist with their military training. Most conscripts, soon-to-be conscripts, and past conscripts express a great negativity towards the idea of a forceful conscription. According to Time, quote, "Unsurprisingly, a growing number of South Korean men are disenchanted with the idea of a conscription, An 2021 Gallup Korea survey found that 43% of respondents wanted military service to be voluntary, compared to the 42% who felt it should be compulsory, and a 15% who did not give an answer. A survey last year from Hankook Research found that 62% of those aged 18 to 29, the prime age for conscription, saw military service as a waste of time. Some 400 of the 1,000 respondents said military service had more disadvantages than advantages. These numbers show that many South Korean males, the same as me, think that there is a better use of time for young males in South Korea than to be forcefully conscripted and have a grueling full schedule which contains mandatory military training, which is very fair. Korea is part of the UN and NATO, which if North Korea's military was ever to invade the South, there would be a member nation standing on the country's side, which makes the amount of military ironic and maybe useless, and I'm gonna explain later. As I said before, the military service, or at least like the conscript part of it, might be a waste of time. According to the interpreter, it has been reported that a lot of soldiers are more likely to develop and learn about skincare than actually be prepared to defend from rivals. The purpose of the military is national security. If their soldiers are not fit for such obvious duty, the military itself becomes useless. The military is made for a very important reason, which makes it mandatory for every male citizen. But if such reason is lost, there is no reason for it to be forced into such large population. So, what have we learned today? We have learned that the Korean mandatory military service is futile and unreliable due to the horrible effects on mental health, the bad results from the training itself, and the possible better time use than spending your time on your nation's military, which isn't gonna do any good. And this should be an optional right for citizens. Even if the military might weaken due to the solution, it's better to have a small army with strong soldiers than a large army with weak soldiers. Thank you, listeners, men, women, children, and possibly National Assembly members. Let us know what you think down below in the comments, and we're open to any criticism or feedback. This was your host, Edmund Scroll, and this was today's episode in Daylight Politics.